I had paid for the entire dinner, every single plate, every single chair. But when I looked down at the guest list, my name was crossed out in thick blue ink. My daughter-in-law just smiled like it was nothing, and my son wouldn't even look me in the eye. "There just isn't any room for you, Evelyn. We had to optimize the seating chart for Brenda's family," my daughter-in-law Vanessa said, smoothing out the printed guest list on the restaurant table. I stood right there in the middle of the dining room, the receipt for $1,500 freshly drawn from my local credit union account, still clutched in my purse, staring at the paper. My name had been cleanly crossed out with a heavy blue ballpoint pen. My son Jeffrey stared guiltily at the floor and adjusted his glasses, completely silent. This was the celebration for my grandson Cooper's first day of elementary school, a party I had bankrolled entirely. Vanessa smiled at me coldly, as if it were the most natural thing in the world for the person footing the bill to pack up and go home before the expensive entrees were even served. "You're probably exhausted from standing so long anyway, Mom," Jeffrey muttered, finally refusing to meet my gaze. In that exact moment, I didn't lose my temper. I didn't scream, and I didn't cry. Instead, a deep, icy clarity washed over me. All the years I had paid for everything covered their grocery hauls and spent 3 days a week folding their laundry flashed before my eyes. They didn't see me as a mother or a grandmother. I was just a walking ATM and a free maid. I slipped the receipt deep into my purse, smoothed down my coat, and looked my daughter-in-law dead in the eye. "You're right," I said quietly, my voice steady. "I am tired." I turned around, walked out of the restaurant without another word, and left their high society gathering behind. As my fingers wrapped around my car keys, I knew today was the very last time they would ever humiliate me. Tomorrow things were going to change, and their wallets were going to feel it immediately. The second I got back to my cozy townhouse, I sat straight down at the kitchen table. I pulled my thick financial binder from the cabinet and laid my bank statements out in front of me. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were operating with military precision. Armed with a yellow highlighter, I went through the last 6 months, line by line. It was staggering to see it all laid out. $60 for Vanessa's grocery run here, $90 for Cooper's new sneakers there, and a hefty automatic transfer every single month for his private daycare tuition. I had done it all gladly, genuinely believing I was helping my son pull through a tight financial spot. But as I added up the numbers, a text message Vanessa sent me last week popped into my head. It was a picture of a brand new top-of-the-line espresso machine in her kitchen captioned, "Hey, it's family, we don't count pennies." Now I finally saw the system for what it was. My pension was funding their daily lives so they could indulge in the luxuries I denied myself. The catering bill from today was just the tip of the iceberg. All told, I had transferred or handed over more than $7,000 in cash over the last few months. Jeffrey had never once asked to see the receipts. He just took it for granted. I slammed the binder shut. The mailbox downstairs was stuffed with store flyers, but my mind was completely cleared of any desire to grant their wishes. I pulled up my banking app on my phone and tapped into the recurring transfers menu. The first click stung a little, but the second felt like pure liberation. The daycare tuition transfer was deleted effective immediately, and that was only day 1 of the cleanup. It took until exactly Monday evening at 8 o'clock for my phone to start buzzing on the coffee table. Jeffrey's name lit up the screen. In the past, I would have scrambled to answer it, consumed with guilt that something might be wrong with the kids. Tonight, I let it ring 3 full times before calmly picking up. Hey, Mom, is there something wrong with your bank? Jeffrey asked, skipping any kind of greeting. His voice was frantic, the exact tone he used whenever he had to clean up a mess. The daycare director emailed Vanessa today saying this month's tuition didn't clear. I sat back comfortably in my armchair, sipping a hot cup of tea, looking out at my spotless living room. There's nothing wrong with the bank, Jeffrey, I replied evenly. I canceled the automatic transfer. A heavy silence fell over the line. I could practically hear his brain scrambling for words. What do you mean? You know how tight things are for us right now with the new SUV payment, he stammered. Vanessa was completely counting on that money. Jeffrey, you are a 35-year-old grown man, I said, keeping my voice firm. If you choose to buy a luxury vehicle, you need to pay for your own child's childcare. I am no longer responsible for your overhead. He tried to play his usual card. We just thought you loved feeling needed. That phrase, which used to turn me to putty, only brought a tired smile to my face tonight. I love being needed as a grandmother, Jeffrey, not as a credit line, I countered. And speaking of plans, I won't be picking Cooper up from school this Wednesday. I have a hair appointment and then I'm grabbing coffee with my neighbor Marilyn. Jeffrey gasped. But Vanessa has to work, he cried. Then the two of you will have to figure that out, I said, and simply hung up. By Tuesday, they rolled out the silent treatment. The steady stream of photos of Cooper on my phone completely dried up, and Vanessa apparently blocked me on social media because her profile picture vanished. It was her textbook tactic if I didn't fall into line. My access to my grandson was cut off. It used to send me into an absolute panic, and by the next afternoon, I'd be standing on their porch with an apology and a bakery cake. But this time, I held my ground. Instead, I drove out to the local hardware store. Heavy in my purse was a specific object, the spare key to my place that Jeffrey kept for emergencies. Vanessa had a habit of using that key to walk right into my home unannounced whenever I was out running errands. She'd raid my pantry for canned goods, or leave piles of Jeffrey's laundry on top of my washing machine with a sticky note, "Mom, don't make a big deal out of it. You're running loads anyway." At the hardware store, I spent $40 on a brand new deadbolt that came with 3 fresh keys. The guy at the counter gave me a quick rundown on how to install it. Once I got home, I grabbed my screwdriver and swapped out the lock cylinder. It took me all of 10 minutes. When the new lock clicked into place with a solid metallic thud, I felt an enormous weight lift off my chest. My home was my sanctuary again. At exactly 4 in the afternoon, the time I would usually be sitting in the daycare pickup line, I was lounging on my deck with a good book. My phone stayed blissfully silent. They thought they could freeze me out. They had no idea I was already setting up a move that would hit them significantly harder than a canceled tuition check. The confrontation didn't take long to find me. On Thursday morning, I ran into Vanessa at the local supermarket. I was standing by the deli counter picking up some cheese when she rammed her shopping cart right alongside mine. Her face was a mask of tightly coiled fury. "Well, look who decided to grace us with her presence," she said loud enough to make 2 other shoppers turn around. "Jeffrey is absolutely devastated by how you're acting. And I had to sacrifice my entire afternoon off just to pick up Cooper." I took my package from the deli clerk, thanked her politely, and turned to look Vanessa dead in the eye. "Good morning, Vanessa," I said calmly. She pointed aggressively at her overflowing cart, which was stacked with high-end organic brands and 3 expensive bottles of wine. "Since you screwed us over on the daycare money, you can at least cover our groceries for the week. It's not like you have any real expenses anyway, just sitting at home all day." She actually started pushing her cart ahead of mine, fully expecting me to follow her to the register and whip out my debit card. It was the exact same entitlement she displayed at the restaurant on Sunday. "No, Vanessa," I said, my voice clear and loud enough to carry. "I won't be doing that anymore. Pay for your own food." Her face flushed bright red. "You are being unbelievably selfish," she hissed. "We are your family. Family doesn't uninvite a mother from a dinner after she pays the $1,500 bill." I replied without a hint of agitation. I turned my cart around and walked toward the self-checkout. While I scanned my few items, I could hear Vanessa at a regular lane loudly arguing with the cashier because her card was being declined. I bagged my things and walked out into the warm afternoon air with a smile. The real storm hit on Friday night. I was just sitting down to dinner when I heard someone out in the hallway aggressively trying to force a key into my front door lock. It scratched and rattled violently against the handle. Then Jeffrey's muffled voice came booming through the wood. "Mom, open up. My key isn't working. What's going on?" I got up, slowly, walked over to the door but left it shut, speaking through the gap with the security chain firmly engaged. Jeffrey stood there, his face flushed, clutching his old key ring. Vanessa was right beside him, her arms tightly crossed over her chest. "I changed the locks, Jeffrey," I said through the door. "Why are you doing this to us?" he yelled. "Locking out your own son? That's unhinged," Vanessa piped up instantly. "We just came to get the winter tires we store in your basement. You have absolutely no right to keep us out of here." I looked through the crack at the two people I had spent years subsidizing. "The basement belongs to my townhouse," I explained coolly. "And since you made it clear my name didn't belong on your guest list, I can only assume you don't care for my presence. Why on earth would you expect access to my property?" Jeffrey looked helplessly at his wife. "Mom, come on, don't make this so complicated," he whined, falling back on his old script. "You know how stressed out we are." "Your stress is no longer my problem," I replied. "You can have your tires tomorrow. I will roll them out by the driveway at 10 in the morning. You can load them up then. Now please leave the building, you're making a scene for the neighbors." I shut the door completely and turned the deadbolt. Right on time. At 10 o'clock Saturday morning, my son's car pulled into the driveway. I had already gone through the trouble of rolling the 4 heavy tires out of the basement and lining them up neatly by the garage. I watched from my kitchen window while sipping a freshly brewed cup of coffee. Jeffrey got out his expression utterly grim. He hoisted the tires into his trunk in total silence while Vanessa remained in the passenger seat staring dead ahead. They clearly thought this dramatic display would intimidate me. But my real move was scheduled for the next day. Every Sunday, it had been an unwritten rule that the 3 of them would come over to my place for a massive family dinner. I would spend all weekend cooking roasting meats and setting the table with my finest china, paying for every single ingredient out of my own pocket. But this Saturday, I called my oldest friend, Clara. "Hey, Clara, are we still on for tomorrow?" I asked. She laughed over the line. "Absolutely, Evelyn." The Amtrak train leaves at 9 sharp. We had booked a day trip into the city, complete with a Broadway matinee and dinner at a beautiful restaurant right on the waterfront. The money I had saved from cutting off their daycare subsidy easily funded the entire excursion. To make sure everything at home was secure, I checked my recent utility bills, which showed a healthy credit balance. My finances were in perfect order. As I packed my small tote bag that evening, I felt a surge of excitement I hadn't experienced in years. Tomorrow at 9 in the evening, Jeffrey and Vanessa would drive up to a pitch-black townhouse and finally realize the free restaurant was permanently closed. And I was going to have the time of my life. Sunday in the city was magical, but Monday morning brought the real reckoning. When I got back to my townhouse in the afternoon, I checked my phone to find over 30 missed calls. Jeffrey had been trying to reach me every few minutes. Moments later, a furious pounding shook my front door. I opened it wide this time. I had absolutely nothing left to hide. Jeffrey stood in the hallway alone, looking completely frazzled, holding a piece of plastic in his hand. It was the authorized user debit card tied to my credit union savings account, a card I had given him years ago strictly for emergencies. "Mom, why did you freeze Cooper's savings account?" he demanded, his voice cracking. "Vanessa went to withdraw money for his tutoring program today, and the ATM swallowed the card. I didn't invite him inside. I just stood firmly in the doorway." "Because that money was deposited entirely by me, Jeffrey," I said evenly. "It was intended to be a nest egg for Cooper's college fund when he turns 18. But I've been looking at the statements, and Vanessa has been consistently siphoning money out of it to pay for your online shopping packages." Jeffrey swallowed hard, refusing to look me in the eye. "We were totally going to pay you back," he lied smoothly. "You know how expensive everything is right now. The two of you lied to me and took what wasn't yours." "Jeffrey," I said, devoid of bitterness, just stating the facts. "The card is canceled. The account has been restructured solely under my name, and the funds are locked in a CD until Cooper is old enough. Neither of you will ever touch a dime of it again." He stared at me as if he were seeing his mother for the very first time. The soft, compliant pushover was gone. Standing before him was a woman who knew exactly where her boundaries lay. "Vanessa is going to lose her mind," he whispered. "Then that is your problem to manage, Jeffrey," I replied. It didn't take 30 minutes for Vanessa to come storming up the front walkway. Her heels clicked sharply against the pavement. Jeffrey was still standing there like a defeated child outside my door. The moment she caught sight of me, she completely lost her composure. "You selfish, spiteful old woman!" She screamed, her voice echoing so loudly through the courtyard that my neighbor Marilyn cracked her blinds to look out. "You are completely destroying this family. We can't even afford our summer vacation now because of your little tantrum. How can you be so incredibly cruel?" I stood my ground, completely unbothered. I didn't raise my voice, and I refused to engage with her insults. I just stared at her calmly until she literally ran out of breath. In the sudden quiet of the walkway, I said, "I'm not arguing with you, Vanessa. I am telling you how it is. On Sunday, you treated me like an outsider at a dinner I paid for. You crossed my name off the list like I was garbage. The second you did that, you forfeited any right to expect a single dollar from me ever again." Vanessa let out a harsh, mocking laugh. "Fine. Then you can get used to never seeing your grandson again," she threatened, wielding her ultimate weapon. I gave her a sad but entirely unshakable smile. "Cooper is going to grow up, Vanessa. He'll learn to think for himself. And when he's old enough, he'll decide whether he wants to have a relationship with his grandmother. Until then, I am going to live my life." Jeffrey tugged firmly on his wife's sleeve. "Come on, Vanessa, let's go. It's over," he muttered, completely defeated. He finally understood that the well had run dry for good. They turned around and walked down the path. I watched them go, closed the door, slid the deadbolt into place, and took a long, clean breath. It was over. 3 months have flown by since that day. My mailbox is no longer filled with past due notices that don't belong to me. My credit union account has bounced back beautifully, and I don't have to second-guess myself before spending money on something I want. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I attend an introductory Spanish class at the local community center. And on the weekends, Marilyn and I often drive out to the mountains for day hikes. My life has become quiet, but it's a beautiful, self-directed kind of quiet. Jeffrey sent me a letter 2 weeks ago. Not a text message, but a real handwritten letter. He apologized for his behavior and asked if he could come over by himself sometime just to grab a cup of coffee. I wrote him back. I suggested a brief meetup at a little diner downtown, just the two of us, no Vanessa, and no financial favors on the table. If he wants a relationship, he has to come to me as my son, not as my dependent. Right now, I'm sitting out on my deck, feeling the warm sun on my face, taking a slow sip of my coffee. The new keyring is resting right next to me on the patio table, a little silver symbol of my independence. I learned a hard lesson through all of this. You can have a good heart, but you can never let people walk all over you just to keep the peace in the family. I have my life back, and that feeling is absolutely priceless. Looking back at that restaurant disaster now, I'm almost grateful to Vanessa. Her blue ballpoint pen might have crossed my name off their guest list, but it simultaneously wrote me a ticket to exactly what mattered most, my own self-worth and my own peace of mind.